But the monsoon season brings with it the same story. A story of cities being flooded, waterlogged and traffic snarls. Usually this monsoon menace story plays out in Mumbai. But this time around, it's the national capital Delhi that has seen waterlogging that has left people shocked. The sight of heritage structures turning into moats, hospitals flooding, buses stranded have been hitting TV screens since this morning. You've probably been hearing about the waters in the Yamuna breaching record levels of 208.65 meters. That's the highest in 45 years. Not just that, but now a water cut has also been announced for the city. Commute has been hit as metro services are disrupted. Several key roads blocked. Interstate buses and other heavy vehicles coming in from other states have also been stopped for the time being. In the midst of all of this, unbelievable scenes from the Red Fort as water stood still around the structure, with many claiming that the Yamuna is going back to its old path. Before we move ahead and tell you why this is happening and how politics has peaked over it, let's take a look at this report from my colleague Priyank.
We are standing on, a location which is barely a kilometers away from the Old Delhi railway station. You can see at the board where you can see that on left, if you will take, it will reach to the Old Delhi railway station. On the right hand side is the ISBT terminal. And if you can remember those red color half circle marks, semi-circle marks, that is a location which is an iconic location because Amir Khan once shot his PK movie and there were many sequences which were shot there. So we are talking about a location which have been very much prominent for the usage of the people of the national capital. And as you can see, I've just walked a few meters away from the flyover which has just ended on the other side. My video journalist will show you. The traffic is standstill. They are unable to move towards this location because of the heavy water flow which is coming out. And what is more worrying, Balkrishna, if you can once again come towards this side and show you, if you just sit down a bit, thoda niche ho jaye Balkrishna ji, you can see the layers of water which is coming out, which means that the water flow is still moving towards the central Delhi, which is very much worrying thing. This is the backside of the Red Fort. We are standing right behind the Red Fort, and these were the location which was supposed to be properly maintained and not. The sewage system should have been much more prompt because of the heritage and the iconic structure which is right behind us. So if this is the situation where what we are witnessing, it's certainly a very serious thing. I'm just standing 7 to 8 steps away from my video journalist because we want to keep our camera equipment safe. But if you can see that the journalists are trying to help the old man who is coming. Yes, I'm moving towards one of my fellow reporter who's from the other media network, and he is giving, he's calling us so that there's an old man who's injured. So where's the government? If journalists, media persons are trying to save if journalists and media persons are trying to save the life of innocent individuals, this old man who's trying to struggle to save his life, then where is the administration? Where are the tall claims which have been made by the district administration? And that is something very, very. So on the ground, that is the situation because we keep on moving from one location. We keep on moving. We keep on moving from one location to another location if we are trying to help individuals to self. Sir, कहाँ से आ रहे थे आप? फंस कैसे गए?
हम जमुना पार्क कृष्णा नगर से आ रहे हैं।
तो इधर कैसे आ गए?
फंस गए, 2 घंटा हो गया, 1.5 घंटा।
कहाँ बैठे थे आप?
और गाड़ी वालों को उन्होंने फोन भी करा, कोई सुनाई नहीं कर रहा हमारी।
आप कौन सी गाड़ी से आती है? सर यहाँ पानी भरा हुआ, फंस
पानी भरा हुआ, हम तो परेशान हो गए ना, बताओ। हम प्यास से पानी।
कहाँ पे बैठे थे आप?
कुछ
बैठे कहाँ थे आप?
रहते हम कृष्ण नगर।
नहीं, यहाँ पे कहाँ बैठे थे सर आप?
यहाँ जा रहे थे फुहारे।
अच्छा,
फुहारे गुरुद्वारे जा रहे थे।
अच्छा, गुरुद्वारे जा रहे थे।
हाँ, गुरुद्वारे जाके यहीं रास्ते में फंस गए।
Just look at that horror. Just look at that horror going on in the national capital, and there you had Priyank standing in the middle of all of that water. Of course, a lot of journalists today and a lot of television journalists today going out and reporting in the midst of all of that water. It's no easy task, and bringing us this story. But now, as we break it down this evening, here's the catch. It has barely rained in Delhi in the last couple of days. Definitely not the kind of rains we saw a week ago that led to flooding. So what's happening here? The problem lies in Delhi's drainage system that dates back to 1976, when Delhi's population was a fraction of what it was today. The old drainage plan has been unable to cater to a growing population and rapid urbanization of the city. Another problem is the multiplicity of agencies that govern Delhi's drains. The PWD, which is under the Delhi government, the MCD, which is now also under the Aam Aadmi Party, and a few central agencies all control Delhi's drains, and that has been a cause of much confusion. Now, while IIT Delhi was given the responsibility of developing a new master plan in 2011, which also recommended a single agency to deal with drains, that report took 7 years to be submitted. It was finally submitted in 2018. This was rejected by the government, and 3 years later, in 2021, the government said that the report was too generic and lacked actionable points. After that, the Delhi government did seek to appoint private consultants to prepare plans for Delhi's 3 major natural drainage basins. But that also got stuck in the usual red tape. It was finally in May 2023, that's barely 2 months ago, that a consultant has now been appointed for one of the 3 basins from where Delhi's drainage system goes. That's the Najafgarh basin. The other 2 are still in limbo. There's not even a consultant to figure out what to do next. Until then, citizens of Delhi continue to suffer. Now, this is the part where the water can't go out. On the other side is also the fact that there is a huge amount of water released by Haryana's Hathni Kund barrage due to incessant rain in Himachal Pradesh. So on the one hand, you have a massive inflow of water from Haryana and because of the rains in Himachal, and on the other hand, the drainage system is just not working. You've also had Delhi's own record-breaking rainfall in the past week that brought the city to its knees, and then you have the lousy drains. Add to that, disappearance of Delhi's wetlands, incorrect sloping of certain drains, and piling up of sewage and garbage in stormwater drains that has compounded the misery. Now comes the question as to whose fault this is. The Kejriwal government has been at the receiving end of brickbats from the BJP as these horrific pictures flooded our TV screens from MP Gautam Gambhir, who's blamed the government for freebies for this mess, to Anurag Thakur, who's questioned whether the CM's own Sheesh Mahal has been impacted. All of them have been speaking out. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma even took a jibe at an invite he'd received from Mr. Kejriwal to see Delhi's developmental work, asking, is this the development? Meanwhile, the CM has been blaming the release of water from Haryana.
इस लेवल की पानी पहुंचेगा ये कभी सोचा नहीं था। तो अभी 3 वाटर ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट हमारे वजीराबाद, चंद्रावल और ओखला 3 वाटर ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट बंद हो गए हैं इसकी वजह से, बिकॉज पानी पंप्स के अंदर घुस गया है, अंदर मशीनों में घुस गया है। और जब तक पानी कम होगा उसके बाद उनको मशीनों को सुखाया जाएगा, क्योंकि बिजली से चला दिया तो करंट आ सकता है, और उसके बाद पानी दोबारा शुरू होगा। लगभग 25% दिल्ली का पानी जो है वो इसकी वजह से कम हो जाएगा।
देखिए, शीश महल में रहकर शीर्षासन में व्यस्त कुछ लोग दूसरों पर दोष मढ़ने पे लगे हैं, अपने जिम्मेदारी से भाग रहे हैं, और पिछले 9 वर्षों में हमने कभी उनको जिम्मेदारी उठाते नहीं देखा है, दोष दूसरों पर मढ़ते देखा है। दिल्ली के लोगों की हालत किसके कारण हुई? मुख्यमंत्री जी अपने घर तक सीमित होकर रह गए। जब एक के बाद दूसरा ऐसा कोई ना कोई विषय सामने आता है तो अपनी जिम्मेदारी लेने की बजाय जिम्मेदारी से भागते हैं, और केजरीवाल जी ने इस बार फिर वैसा ही किया
कि ये जो पानी इस वक्त यमुना में है वो दिल्ली के बारिश का पानी नहीं है। दिल्ली में पिछले 2 दिन से बारिश नहीं हुई है, मगर लगातार यमुना का लेवल बढ़ रहा है, क्योंकि ये पानी वो है जो हिमाचल, उत्तराखंड और हरियाणा में हथनी कुंड के इलाके से, हथनी कुंड बैराज से छोड़ा जा रहा है। तो हमारी केंद्र सरकार से और हिमाचल और हरियाणा से लगातार संपर्क है और हम चाहेंगे कि लेवल ज़्यादा ना बढ़े दिल्ली में, उतना ही पानी वहाँ से छोड़ा जाए कि ये पानी दिल्ली में ब्रीच ना करे।
So at the end of the day, we need to break it down to a few very simple but important questions. One, can Delhi's current plight be blamed on neighboring Haryana? Because that's what they're saying. All the water being released from Haryana is flooding into Delhi, and it just doesn't have the capacity to deal. The drainage system doesn't have the capacity to deal with this quantum of water. Why has Delhi government then moved so slowly on the drainage master plan? It's been hanging fire since 2018. Is there any way to reverse haphazard urbanization causing these floods? And that's an important question, because what typically happens in the next 24 to 48 hours, these waters will recede. It will not rain again like that, perhaps, hopefully, and everyone forgets about it. But the fact is, you'll have to walk back a lot of haphazard development to really find a permanent solution. And will there be any accountability after all of this ends for the Delhi floods? To speak more on this, I'm joined this evening by Vimlendu Jha. He's an environmentalist. Manohar Khushalani, former director of the National Water Academy, is with me on the show. I'm speaking with Dr. Anjal Prakash, research director at ISB, and Professor Dr. Anil Gupta, HOD at Policy Planning at the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, is joining us today on the show. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on Beyond the Headline. And we're going to keep it simple so that people can understand what's really going on. These are serious questions. Dr. Anil Gupta, let me start with you. Does Haryana have to release that water into Delhi? Is there any way around it? And is that the cause of the problem right now, as is being claimed?
See, we have to live with certain realities. And when we are moving on the path of development, there is always a implicit line that we call it, live with the risk. And the answer is that how do we prepare to manage that risk? So there are, I would say, three layers of risk. One, we are talking about the impact of climate change. We all know that is also a reality. And that this year, the kind of unprecedented rainfall that we have seen, this is already exposed the kind of preparedness that the challenges that we have. But in the past 15 years, there were several incidences where when the water was released from the dams of Haryana and Delhi got flooded. So, so basically the question comes that how do we address both the aspects? One is that how do we prepare for the extreme climatic events, but besides that, how are we managing the non-climatic actors? So, so developing our drainage system, managing its carrying capacity by maintaining it effectively. So these are the non-climatic actors, which are sometimes even more important than the climatic actors. And that is what we are seeing in the present situation also. So because when the water exceeds in the dams, there is no other way than to release it. So there are always the upstream downstream relationship, whether between the states, between the districts, between the two sub basins. These kind of issues are already there and always there. So basically there has to be an effective coordination, and there is a responsibility of both the sides. But not only the coordination, along with that, how are we managing our water systems? So when I say that this much of water we are seeing in Delhi, basically there are two issues. One, that a large amount of water, huge water, that is creating a situation in Delhi, huge floods, lot of disastrous challenges. But on the other hand, when this water is receding, it is also the loss of water, because in the following seasons we again see the water scarcity challenges. So many cities we see these kind of challenges, and Delhi also is facing not only the floods but also water scarcity after some time. So I often say that we have to start looking city as a system. So if we look at a compartment, then probably it would not work. We have to see drainage. We have to see the wetland areas. We have to see the
Can I ask a very
Gupta
ji, can I ask a very simple question? Can I ask a very simple question? You said we have to start seeing a city as a system. One would assume that the national capital of this country would already be having that kind of planning and development around it. It cannot be that in the last 75 years there's never been a situation where water overflows and from Hathani Kund barrage water is released into Delhi and the Yamuna swells. Yes, this time it was a 45-year-old record, but it's not like it's never happened. One would assume that everything that you're saying, while it's very, very right, is not some new revelation. People know about this. I'm trying to understand why today we're trying to figure out what to do.
I totally agree with you. Many times people would like to call it as a surprise, but I would not call it as a surprise because any kind of planning does lot of anticipation. And anticipation is done about the extremes and uncertainties also. So there are situations when the water is there is no other way than to release the waters from the dams. So these kind of situations are many times inevitable. So we have to anticipate these kind of situations and we have to prepare for that. Delhi's carrying capacity for the drainage carrying capacity is, I would say that regularly got compromised because of many reasons. The kind of land use flaws, the kind of the lack of maintenance of the drainage channels, the waste management related issues, loss of wetlands. There are many reasons that have affected the drainage. Even if you look at the Yamuna. So before this flood, Yamuna's carrying capacity was also compromised to a great extent. So basically that makes the available natural buffer to accommodate flood water reduced to a significant level. So I think that is very important aspect to see. Every state and all the districts are required now to prepare a disaster management plan as well as the climate change adaptation plan. Delhi, I think, is yet to come up with the updated climate change adaptation plan. That will also need to integrate.
So a few things. We don't have a master plan. We don't have a master plan in Delhi which is updated and has a plan for the drainage system. We need a climate action plan. All of that is hanging fire. I don't know how fast things are going to move once this happens. Right now, it's all focused on, the BJP and the Congress blaming the Aam Aadmi Party. The Aam Aadmi Party saying that if Haryana releases water, what are we going to do? Manohar Khosrani, I want your insight on this. And I started by asking that question to Dr. Gupta. Was there no other alternative but to release water from Haryana into Delhi?
See, this is a standard function of any barrages and any dams. Whenever a particular water level rises above the safety level, the water has to be released. There is no other way, otherwise the dam would burst, or the barrage would burst, or it will overflow, or things will happen, or something will happen upstream. So that blame cannot be given to the release of water. It's a normal function. It happens everywhere in all the dams, in all the hydroelectric projects. It's a chain process from one dam to another along the river, from one barrage to another along the river. And it's a chain reaction and these things happen. That's not the issue. The issue is a basic one. Our drainage system was built by the British. Nothing new has been added by any government so far, which has come to Delhi. Look at, every year I remember about 7, 8, 10 years ago, every year before the monsoons, the drainage system used to be desilted. That practice has stopped totally. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about cleaning. It used to happen every year before every monsoon, the desilting used to be done. The drains were cleaned up. Second thing, what people are doing when they are parking their cars, they find the drainage system to be an obstacle in the way of parking the cars. They cover up the drains. In Double Block, in Greater Kailash, a very good system has been designed finally by the previous legislator who was here, which is working very fine. Otherwise, even Greater Kailash used to get very much blocked up with water. The second thing is, if you remember, when I was in school and college, there used to be huge stormwater drains. And after every rain, what used to happen was those drains used to be full with sparkling clean rainwater, and it used to flow through the whole city and go into the Yamuna. Now, what happened was that in the colonies which were not approved, people started putting their sewage water into that. So the stormwater drains started smelling. They were not supposed to take the sewage water, but many unauthorized colonies started putting their sewage water into that. In order to cover that, what happened was the people who felt the smell was too much, they decided to cover the stormwater drains. And stormwater drains were covered in a very unprofessional manner, like a building. The pillars inside were not hydrodynamic. The pillars were created and a roof has been put on the stormwater. They used stormwater drains, which is beautiful, obviously to hide the smell. But one day those stormwater drains are also going to get clogged and blocked, but there's no way to clean them or anything like that. They're all covered up. So that is another issue. The third issue is that where is the water coming from? We have to look at the fundamentals. You know, people used to say, this is the first time I've heard government saying that don't travel towards the hills at this time. What is happening is landslides are happening all over. Why are the landslides happening? Because of deforestation. If you have a small concrete slab, it will break without the steel reinforcement. So the trees and the plants and the grass are there. They act as a kind of a bonding for the soil. What is happening is the trees are getting cut, so all the soil which has started flowing, it is creating landslides. Not only that, the vegetation on the slopes of the hills that used to absorb the water. Now that water is not getting absorbed.
Absolutely,
absolutely,
Mr. Kushlani, and thank you for that. So and basically, what we're seeing is a combination of man-made messes piling up one over the other, and now everyone's trying to point fingers.
Exactly.
Everyone's trying to point fingers, saying that you're the one who messed it up. Now, Vimlendu Jha, very natural that you will ask the government at that point, and in this case the Delhi government, that what are you doing about it? I want to come back to that IIT report, which eventually came in 2018 and had as part of its master plan some details, some recommendations on what to do about the drainage. Now, what we saw in the research that we did is that the capacity of Delhi's drainage system is about 50 mm. And you had water coming in at much, much, much higher quantums. At its highest, there was 150 mm of rain in a day. My question to you, Vimlendu, is the drainage really the concern? Can you rehaul an entire drainage system for a worst case scenario?
Tamanna, if we can go to Mars, we can, of course, really revamp our drainage system. But I'll answer that question. But before that, let me tell you that two reasons why Delhi gets flooded. Delhi gets flooded because of its own local rainfall and because of Yamuna. And in the last 7 days, we've actually seen both the things happen. So right now, squarely putting the blame on Hatnikund Barrage, not Hatnikund Dam. Hatnikund Barrage is a little too much, and it's actually dishonest on the part of the government to really say that water released from there is the cause of the flood. Because the reality is that forget about 50 mm and 150 mm that you and I are talking about. Delhi and Delhi's underpasses get flooded with 10 mm of rainfall. And why just Delhi, even Noida for that matter, or Gurgaon and everywhere else? So therefore, we need to understand that to really, discuss this climate event by blaming the climate is a little disservice to the idea of climate change, because they're not saying that let's accept climate change. Wish they had accepted climate change and erratic weather patterns and therefore prepared themselves for this. We need to understand that what Delhi has done over several decades, and therefore not just one political party, but several political parties. And in our conversation for last 20 minutes, Tamanna, we've been referring to these water bodies as drains. Our vocabulary, my vocabulary, your vocabulary, and the vocabulary of every other panelist on the show is using the term called drain. Najafgarh is not a drain, it's a Sahibi river. Defense colony Nala is not defense colony Nala, it's Satpura River. Many of these stormwater drains were actually natural water carrying, rainfall carrying water systems, tributaries or rain-fed rivers of Yamuna that very gradually we changed and we named it as Najafgarh. If you just type Sahibi River on Google, and you'll see where it originates, and actually that's been converted and restricted to be a small little trail of water. Not a small little trail of water, it actually dumps almost 1,500 million liters of wastewater every day into Yamuna. So when a stormwater drain, which was supposed to take water from the ridge or based on its topography, was supposed to drain the entire city's water, has been congested, has been encroached upon. And by the way, someone was also talking about illegal construction, illegal colonies around drains. No, sir. Yeah. The encroachment is not illegal. Most of the encroachment in Delhi is legal. Pragati Maidan is actually in the wetlands of Yamuna. Commonwealth Games Village is in the actual floodplains of Yamuna. Delhi government's headquarters, which is Delhi Secretariat, is in the floodplains of Yamuna. And therefore, you and I need to understand that let's look at what are the areas that actually got flooded. It's those areas that were basically Yamuna's own land. Yamuna has reclaimed land. And there are these images going on Twitter about how Yamuna is to actually flow where the Red Fort is. And reality is that on the course of the river or on the bed of the river, on the swollen bed that we call floodplains and wetlands, we ended up making the ring road. So very common sense that the entire drainage of Delhi, all the water was supposed to come down and drain off into Yamuna. The natural slope drain we blocked by building a ring road, the fancy ring road that every city wants to build. And most of these rain-fed rivers that we actually had in Delhi, more than 19 of them, they have been named as drains rather than stormwater drains or rather than the tributaries. And they've, as someone said, it's been either been covered, encroached, there's solid waste, there's sewage flowing that, and all of that. So indeed, we should talk about climate change. But the reason why I will not talk about today's episode as a climate event, because Mr. Prakash will talk about it, I'm sure, there will be these freak events that will happen. And we've known about these freak events for almost a decade and a half at least. What's our preparedness? Where is our planning?
Nothing.
In the last 3 years,
Nothing.
We've cut thousands and thousands of trees in Delhi. We have constructed on the floodplains. We are actually looking at Yamuna floodplain as a land mass, and government is the largest, biggest encroacher of the river and the floodplain. I will not believe that this is rain gods. This is man-made or government-made disaster.
Obviously, we've messed up. Obviously. Now, the question is, what can we do about it? Or are we just going to wring our hands on this show and then, move on when it ends? And Dr. Prakash, this is one of the questions I posed. The kind of development that Vimlendu is describing, today, if someone had to say this is wrong, this is ecologically wrong, this is bad planning, clearly it can't be reversed. I mean, I'm trying to understand what is the solution from here on, if any.
Yeah, let me just come to the diagnosis first before we go into the solution, and I just want to put 1 or 2 points before we go there. So
sure.
The point is that, and I've been with IPCC for the last 8 to 10 years and been part of 2 big reports, and each of the reports that come on, they'll tell you very categorically and without mincing any word. In fact, there has been some debate internally in IPCC that how much we can be strong about what we are messaging. And then this last report that I was been part of, the scientists themselves said that the governments are not listening, and that means we have to really talk in a much more harsher word. And that's what we said, that the humanity is in code red, and that's the whole part of it that we have been flagging. The problem is, Tamanna, is that the science is informing, science, the scientist and the science is doing his job. It is telling you that the problem is there, but the action part is missing. I think Vimlendu is really right that this connectivity in terms of the science and the policy connect, that is something that I see a strong miss there. So that's number one. Second part is about the, and I'm actually, when I was talking to you, I was having a déjà vu because last year I talked about, a similar panel. I was in the, we were talking about Mumbai flood. A year before it was Chennai flood. Here,
Yes.
cities after cities, we are seeing that these kind of similar images, which is coming live on our screens. And that's where that, somewhere something is horribly wrong. And that's something that I would like to flag about. Coming to the solution part, there is many solutions. See, the knowledge is out there, Tamanna. It is not leading to wisdom. It is only leading to what we call is the disaster management, which is actually post-disaster. It is not something that you take into account when the disaster is going to strike. For example, if you have the scientists are telling you that these are kind of weather patterns are extremely going to change. There will be incessant rain. There will be, the entire season's rainfall will happen in 2 events. That means your master plan has to be ready. First thing which I would like to put, and I would like to put 3 points here. One is that we need to think beyond cities. That means we have to think about a regional planning, thinking about what we call the bioregional space in which we will talk about. Today's Delhi's problem is definitely also because the upper reaches of Yamuna has incessant rain, and that has been bringing it here. And that means that we have to plan much further when we plan the cities. That's number one. The second part is that, and that is most of the time the politicians' job is to shift the responsibility and blame everything on climate change. Climate change is there, but here in this case, it's also about your bad planning. And third part, and which I would not like to mince word, we are trained not to talk about this, but I would not, mince my word here, is about corruption. There's a huge corruption, the way in which authorities are working. There's a huge rent seeking that takes place. Each and every city in India is actually a victim of this one, and you and I are, at a receiving end of this one. That's the whole part. And if you find, 200 million.
1 minute, Dr. Prakash, corruption how? One minute, a quick follow-up there. When you say corruption, how? If you were to link corruption to what you're seeing today, how would you link it?
You just take any of the plan. There has been a lot of media reports already flashing in, and I do, where you would see that the planning part, where the execution of these plannings, whatever small level has been there, that also has not been done to a level of, the in which it should have been done. That's the whole part. Second is also about, when I'm saying corruption, it's also because these are the cities we are talking about. These are millennium cities that we are talking about. Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai, Delhi. These the municipal budget is sometimes more than the budget of the states of many places, and that means that there is a huge money which is also flowing in. You have to take certain plan, execute it, end-to-end plan, but they will not do it because there is a minting money part of it is going on, and that's something that is a very worrisome trend. And
absolutely, the fact is that if anyone is truly serious about finding out what happened today, then after the waters recede, there should be a committee set up to look into every aspect that we've discussed here, from bad planning, wrongful sort of development and corruption, if there is any. Let's hope that that happens even after this headline recedes. We'll take a very short break here. I want to thank all of our panelists to join us on the show. But on the other side, it's all about Chandrayaan. The countdown to India's third moon mission has begun. Take a look at that special report when we come back.